Welcome back, Steeler fans. Welcome back to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Coleman.
Brought to you by Happy Hour. Sorry.
Yeah, brought to us by Happy Hour and Diet Mountain Dew. You know me as Smith of Smokins on the message board, joined by my favorite colleagues as always, Corey Karbowski, Corey 39, and Will Masek, Bradshaw to Ben. Gentlemen, we actually came out with a win that we might not gripe too much about. Yes, I did that in question form for a reason. But no.
Hey, Corey's the young positive one. Apparently, I'm the old negative one.
And I'm the souring middle-aged guy.
I actually think we should switch roles for a week. Maybe not this week. Maybe next time. I know Corey's got nothing but positive things to say about the Las Vegas game.
Yeah, well, when you get to play Jimmy Garoppolo, whose second read is always an interception, you got to love what you're going up against. God, even the announcers were like, first read Jimmy Garoppolo, great. Second read Jimmy Garoppolo, oof. So, Pittsburgh feasted on that, got 3 interceptions. Levi Wallace, courtesy 2 of those. Also gave up 2 touchdowns, though. So do those equal each other out, like they'd never happen? I don't know. But anyway, back to the positives. We got a win. Believe it or not, we can throw a deep ball. Thank you, Calvin Austin, for being the one guy that can go down the field and separate. George Pickens had a pretty nice game too. Not great, but pretty good. And gosh darn, even Najee Harris had a good week. Considering the low bar we have for Najee. I mean, it was a better week than weeks past. But no, definitely a lot of things that like about this game. One thing I'll start off with right away, felt like our pass protection was loads better than we've seen here in a few weeks. Maybe that's because, they really only have Mason Crosby, but we even did a decent job of Mason Crosby or therefore
Mason Crosby.
Hey, no wonder the pass protection was good. The kicker for the old Green Bay Packers was pass rushing.
Right.
I remember him in Colorado. What a fearsome pass rusher. That's the kicker. You're Max Crosby with 2 X's.
Right.
He had 2 X, Max?
My bad. Mad Max. Yep, he's going to come and murder me because that's the type
probably
off the court. But
by the way, I would be, if you go back and look at the receipts on Twitter, I guarantee you I'm the first person on Twitter that mentioned Max Crosby's name as a prospect. I love that dude when he was
definitely did.
Young pup.
He definitely did.
All right, that's all. I'm right twice a day. I don't point out whenever I was all into somebody that sucks. So
yeah. Whoever does, Will, whoever does. But what did you guys think of the game? How do you think things went for Steelers this weekend?
I don't want to. I'll just say Kenny improved. I don't think any of the throws he made were necessarily difficult throws. I think they were a lot of layups. I mean, I posed this question after the game where did Kenny make any throws that Duck Hodges couldn't have made? But he wasn't hitting the layups before. So it's improvement. The throws were open. As much as I would love to give Matt Canada some props, I think the Las Vegas Raiders defense was porous, to say the least. I think it was a lot of missed assignments rather than, Matt Canada really dialing some stuff up on him. But I'm not going to kill the offense when we scored 23 points and more than 20. That was a big number last year. But
how long did it take the Dolphins to score 23 points?
Oof.
7 minutes.
Yeah, for real. That was an ugly one.
Sorry, Corey. I don't want to interrupt your sunshine.
I couldn't stop laughing. But, Najee ran hard. Jalen Warren's always running hard. It was much better showing than last week. Mason Cole had another very poor game. That's a negative. I don't really have too many on the offense other than Mason Cole is a sieve in the middle. But, I don't think Kenny made any high-level throws. I'm not looking at this game and saying, Kenny's back. He's old Kenny, which was still But, at least we're making steps back to being a positive net quarterback, if you know what I mean. So we'll take that from this week.
All right. Will?
I thought that the deep throw was on target, and he made a little space for himself in the pocket. I got nothing bad to say about that. That's like, as you said, these are something like layups that you should hit. And he hit him. So, good for him on that. Yeah, I just don't think as I said before the game, I don't think you're really ever going to learn very much about the offense in this game, other than, if they had completely stunk it up against a really poor defense, we'd have something, more to learn from it. But it's sort of it's good that they looked a little better, but they still didn't really, like crank out the hits or anything. So, and that's partially because they're not really trying to, they're playing a style of football where they're they're protecting the quarterback, they're protecting the defense, they're trying
Protecting the quarterback.
well, I'm saying this is I personally, well, here's a rant for you. Like I think the same is true. The same is true with a lot of young quarterbacks. The one we're going to see this week is just as true with him. These coaches, they have this idea that they're protecting a quarterback by running it a lot on the early downs. But what they're really doing is forcing their quarterbacks into situations where they have no-win scenarios on third down, and they don't really know, they don't process quickly enough to get through the progressions on third down. It's like if the first read's not open, they're checking it down or taking a sack. So you're not really making the guy's life easier. And it's the same is true with Kenny. See the one drive against Vegas this week where they had some early passing. They moved the ball downfield. They got him out of the pocket a little bit. And, it's kind of like they even schemed a red zone play where they gave that eye candy of a crossing, a guy in motion that went across the face of Diablo. And all it took was his hesitation for a second, thinking, is that the guy coming this way for me, or is it going to be a run this way? And then, oh shit, the tight end's behind me. So it's like I give them credit for all that stuff. It's just, I don't know why they don't want to do that from the beginning of the game. They seem zeroed in on, trying to feed Najee and trying to get, establishing this run to protect their young quarterback. But I don't, I think that problem is less about the quarterback and, more about everything else. But it's good to see that there is at least some progress towards playing offensive football that looks something like modern NFL football. So if they, maybe it's a function of playing a poor defense, as Tomlin said this week. When you have success, then you have more control over what kind of plays you can run. Well, I guess if you're passive about everything, yes, but at least they felt like comfortable enough to do something more with it this week.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a win's a win. So go ahead and put this one behind us. We've got like Will kind of alluded to, we have a young quarterback that we'll be facing this week. CJ Stroud brings the Texans, Pittsburgh's going to Houston, so a lot of fun with kind of one of the young quarterbacks, we kind of expect to see kind of, be a franchise guy, or at least has the potential to develop into that. So I always think it's kind of fun when you get to play a rookie quarterback. I would have really liked to play a rookie quarterback if Dick LeBeau was still our defensive coordinator. I mean, that guy was a wizard against rookie quarterbacks. Wish we could channel some of that here. But what one matchup I am just desperately afraid of is Tank Dell versus any of our corners. Tank Dell is starting to really come on, ladies and gents. He had he put up huge numbers this week. I can't remember what they were, but this is like 2 weeks in a row. So you started to see his use elevate. And I don't think the Steelers have a single corner that can run with Tank Dell. I'll just put that out there right now. So if we don't have a safety over top of him, we're going to be in a lot of trouble, because I think they're definitely going to try to expose that. I mean, shoot, how many times have we seen Levi Wallace get turned around on tape? Can't backpedal. I mean, same with Patrick Peterson anymore. I hate to say it, but it's like that guy can only make plays on the ball coming forward or in a straight line. He just doesn't break down the way he used to. So that's my big matchup of the week. I am just absolutely terrified of what Tank Dell should be. And if he's available on your waiver wires, go get him, fantasy fans.
I when we were putting together some rankings for prospects before the draft, I tried to convince Corey to put Tank Dell above Puka Nacua, but he wouldn't budge. But we were I just think of the world of Tank Dell. His college tape was just sort of like such a fun guy to watch, because he could line up on the outs. I mean, he's a little guy, He can line up on the outside, and he's a little bit similar to Calvin Austin in the respect of he can beat press coverage as a small guy. Believe that Tank Dell had the number one passer rating against press coverage in all of college football last year, and you can see the way he's adapted to the NFL. They figure he's a little guy that can push him around, but it doesn't really help very much for them. So yeah, I think that's a dangerous matchup. To me, the key matchup is CJ Stroud against the Steelers defense. I suspect that's the difference in the game is that if you look at last week, man, the Steelers pass rush, when it faces a really effective quarterback and a really effective offensive game plan that doesn't really let the pass rush dominate them because it's they mix up play calling, the ball comes out quickly, a lot of different stuff happening that they have to think a little bit on their way to the quarterback. Like against San Francisco, the pass rush was almost meaningless. Against Vegas, it completely destroyed their offense, despite the fact that they could have thrown it up to Devontae Adams on every play. So my hope for this game is that the Steelers defense will just be complicated enough, even though their coverage is not elite at this point in the back half. At least it'll be complicated enough that the pass rush will have time to get home and disrupt a rookie quarterback. Because I still think CJ Stroud, there's possibility for him. I think he does have some upside. Maybe even could have a lot of upside if he puts it all together, which is a big if. But I do figure he's still at the stage where it's kind of like, one read and then take off or figure out what to do. So that to me is the key matchup.
Have you caught a Texans game yet, Will?
I have.
He throws with so much more anticipation than he ever needed to in college, which is a bit of a surprise. It's one of those things that's tough when you watch like a team like Ohio State where they had two first-round tackles, like
yep.
DeJuan Jones first-round tackle, and then plus their receivers. I mean, when you're throwing to that, Marvin Harrison Jr., it's pretty easy to stay on a first read. But
you can't evaluate the guy either. It's really hard to evaluate the quarterback when you're looking.
Yeah. But one thing that teams do say, we may not stun as much up front or do as many like exotic blitzes as we used to, but one thing everyone says about us is that we make the back end very messy for QBs to read. It's tough to see because you can't see it on the game film, but from what people say, we do a ton of invert stuff where we get the corners and the safeties flipping and just kind of make it tough for even veteran QBs to read. That, if Stroud does try hitting these first reads where he's looking and trying to throw a guy open, where that anticipation might, bite him in the ass now, where it's been working so far. But, my big matchups is, TJ's going to have to win big on George Fant, and Laramie Tunsil is just about if not a top two, he's a top three left tackle in the NFL. I mean, Trent Williams, we're going to need Highsmith to have the kind of game that he had against Trent Williams against Tunsil if we want to, I want to say shut this offense down. I mean, one thing we've been talking about, this is, I guess, the second one, is we don't have very good tacklers in the secondary, with the exception of Minka. No one really wraps up their guy and keeps him down, especially on the first hit. Damian Pierce might be the best tackle breaker in the league right now. He hasn't had huge results. The interior of that defensive line is a little porous, but he will run through DBs. He will run, around them, and then they try and tackle him. They get caught with a stiff arm. That's something where that's going to be ugly. But I mean, I'm not sure how many people know about George Fant. This dude ends up starting somehow every year. I mean, he's a backup. He's a damn good backup, but he ends up starting everywhere. And this is a guy where, TJ can win in so many ways, but TJ gets a ton of wins just running past dudes where their pass set just can't keep up with him. And George Fant's a guy, he's a freak athlete. Like, he can get back to where TJ's going to get back to. So that this is one of those games where you force TJ inside and Highsmith is getting, stuffed on the other end where he can't take advantage of that or something. We could be in trouble where our pass rush that bails us out so much isn't really doing that much.
Can I just piggyback on that for a second? I think the Steelers might do a little bit of contain rush this week. So, this thing, I think they might be more focused on having their edges, like their edge rushers, lay in wait for Stroud to come to them, and they might do some stunts in the middle and bring linebackers. I feel like this is one of those weeks, and the guy is mobile enough that might be something they try to do a little bit more than we've seen so far this year. So
that's what teams did to Kenny all last year, where especially later in the year, he was able to work with it. Like teams were doing it to him, and he was still managing to produce. But a lot of those younger QBs only want to bail outside of the pocket. Once you force them to step up, you start feeling bodies around you. You get skittish. That's something where Stroud never really had to deal with in college. And with the interior of that O-line being more porous, feels real claustrophobic when your guard and center is being walked into your lap, and then you've got T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith sitting right on the edges. So,
yeah, I definitely think that's something we can. For as good as Houston played, they played very well against Jacksonville the other day. Thanks a lot, Houston. You screwed up like 4 parlays I put in, by the way. But
well, you're going to get a chance to redeem yourself with a parlay this week.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. So I did hit on one parlay though. I hit on a bunch of parlays in that Chargers Vikings game. So netted positive out of that one. But you guys bring up the offensive line. I mean, that offensive line played really great last week, and they didn't have Laramie Tunsil. They didn't have Titus Hunter. Kenyon Green's out for the year. Drew Scruggs on short-term IR. Scott Quessenberry's out. So I mean, like that unit played very well, against a decent, front four as far as pass rate goes from the Jags. So I mean,
Damn it, you left out the main name though.
Who's that?
It's the right guard that started. I can't remember if it was left guard or right guard that started for them. Kendrick Green.
Oh well,
I know you were shaking. You didn't even want to speak his name. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we got a 6-rounder for him, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a unit, our pass rush can take advantage of, but I mean, I think one of the ways they have to do that is, one of my key matchups is Keanu Benton. He showed up last week against the Raiders. Very good game, was, pushing the pocket and even had his first sack of his career. Shout out, Rook. Nice job. But I mean, if he can win some of those one-on-one matchups, I think, that's what is going to allow Highsmith and Watt to maybe feast on the edges. So it's going to take a total group effort, but I mean, I think we can get after them. I really do. Even Larry Ogunjobi, he's a, pass rusher, quick disruptor more than anything. He's not great against the run, which is obviously what we're really going to have to watch out for with the Texans. But I definitely think we can get after this group as far as pass rushing goes. So if we can force, Stroud to some of those, longer distance throws, that Pittsburgh so desperately tries to avoid, I think we can, kind of have a positive there on defense and get them off the field. So any other matchups you guys think we should highlight here?
People, once a guy's picked, you kind of forget about him once he's been in the NFL for a year or two. But Will Anderson's playing some good football for them. I mean, he's that's not a guy that's that far off in terms of like pass rush win rate from like a lot of the elite guys. I'm looking at a stat right now. He is from number 4 in the NFL in pass rush win rate at 31% right now. So, even if he's not feasting on the sacks right now, that's a guy that if you're not, paying a little mind to, because, Chucks is better in the pass, but it's not a guy that we consider, this elite pass protector that, maybe you have to keep a chip on his side. There's not much else that I'm scared of on that line. So maybe you could afford to divert a little extra attention, but you let a guy like that run free, he might explode on you.
No, he's first year TJ Watt, man. That's where Will Anderson is, right? So he's gonna be a holy terror in a couple of years, but it's still pretty good right now.
I'll throw one more out there. I like Freiermuth's matchups on these linebackers. They're more run stuffers than anything. They're not great in coverage. Christian Harris, I believe, is a second-year player out of Alabama. More of a blitzer pass rusher kind of out of that role, kind of run and chase type of guy. He can drop, don't get me wrong, but it's not always pretty. And then Denzel Perryman, he's always been a good guy to come down, hit the run, but not always great in coverage. And then a guy like Blake Cashman, kind of both those guys are in the same role. So I think if we can get Freiermuth, especially on, Cashman and Perryman, I think that's a plus matchup we could take advantage of. We finally got to use Freiermuth this past week. We forgot about him all season until this past game. I'm about to give props to Matt Canada for a play action touchdown. What am I thinking? But I think Freiermuth's definitely a guy we can take advantage of it. And let's try to get, Mount Washington, his first touchdown of his rookie season. I think that's another guy that we could utilize in the play action passing game a little bit more, because I think everyone expects him to be that run blocking tight end, and everyone I think kind of forgets, this is the kid that, hurdled someone in his first game, last season at Georgia. So very underrated athlete. Glad he's on Pittsburgh. So any other matchups we should highlight here real quick?
Well, I'll piggyback on that one for a second. I mean, the thing about Freiermuth is that most teams have been covering him or paying attention to him with the safety. And I actually do think that Houston's safeties are really good. Jimmy Ward is one of the better guys on the back end in the whole league. I think he's a pretty underrated defender. And Jalen Petra, who,
that's probably the matchup, is Petrie.
Yeah, probably. I was going to say, I think you're going to see a lot of those two guys, depending on where, when and where and what kind of personnel on the field. That I think it's an interesting matchup. Freiermuth definitely has the size in that matchup with Petrie, but that's a tough matchup for Petrie, and it's a tough cover. It's a tough place for Freiermuth too. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure that. To me, I think if you see that Petrie is the matchup against Freiermuth, I think you're going to want to run the ball a lot. But maybe the Steelers will for sure.
Yeah, Petrie's that guy that also plays like twice his size too. He's a skinny little dude, but dude loves to truck people. He's kind of that old school safety mentality of I'm just gonna lay anyone who comes across my face. So
you don't get your pad level wet Brett correct, he's gonna come for you for sure.
Yeah, he's expected to practice this week. He didn't play last week, but they're expected to get him back this week. So that very well could be a big matchup to look for, just because Jalen Petrie is so sudden. His start-stop ability is ridiculous. So Steelers better watch out for that. I hate to say it, but, I think Kenny's thrown a pick in every game except for this last one. Petrie kind of might be that guy that kind of sneaks up on him when he's not. If he's just a little late on a ball, like we've seen him a few times this year, Petrie's a guy who's going to take advantage of that.
By the way, not only did he not throw a pick, he had 2 touchdown passes.
Yeah, that's right.
Where's the celebration? Where's the ticker tape parade? Damn.
That's right. First time. Multi-touchdown game of his career, passing touchdowns of his career. So hopefully,
in his 15th start.
Yeah, in his 15th start. Well, it had to come at some point, right? Well,
maybe not.
But Corey's like, no.
We should feel fortunate.
Right?
We're blessed.
The little breadcrumb the Steelers offense has given us.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's hope Matt Canada can keep, getting breadcrumbs or something, because he needs them more than anyone. So let's actually talk about that really quick, because I almost forgot I wanted to bring this up. Pretty sure I sent you guys this tweet earlier last week. How is it just now, this past week, that that now he has unfettered access to Kenny Pickett? Do they not have numbers? Do they not work in the same building?
Kenny wouldn't give him his cell phone numbers. That's what started all of this. I'm just kidding.
It came out today, or it was either today or late yesterday, but Tomlin said that nothing's changed in terms of roles. However, when I saw that, what it read like was that he would be acting as a QB coach instead of Mike Sullivan. But I don't know if the report was just made up. I don't know if Tomlin was trying to keep that, behind closed doors or whatever. It's weird regardless, because that's kind of a weird, when there's smoke, there's fire usually.
Right. So, it came from like a fairly credible source too. It's not like just some random dude on, Twitter or X, if you really want to get technical.
Yeah. But
I can't remember who it was from, but I was just like,
it was a big account. It was a pretty reputable account.
Yeah. But I was just like, huh? Like how is this a thing? I don't know. Just one of those things where it's just like that
God,
can't,
keep them away.
yeah, it's like that can't be real, can it? And then my buddy was like, no, that shit's real. I was like, oh my God, how is that real?
I
Anyway,
think more restrictions from Canada to Kenny.
yeah. Anyways, end of small little rant. That just blew my mind when I saw it initially. I was just like, that can't be real. But anyway, there was quite a few other things that happened around the NFL this week. We had a team score 70 points. I mean, good Lord.
And by the way, not a single, all offensive touchdowns.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
not even a fumble, scoop and score, or a pick six, or a kick return. All offensive touchdowns.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, and that's where we're going to start off in our pick in the segment here, guys. Didn't like that segue. Anyway,
Yes.
The Dolphins are headed up to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Bills are actually favored by 3 at home. I'm not sure if I like that, but honestly, this is probably the big marquee matchup of the week. This is the game that the NFL wants everyone to watch, because there should be a lot of points put up. Two good young quarterbacks going at it. Corey, I'll let you start on this one. How do you think this one's going to go?
It's tough to doubt a team after they just scored 70. But
right,
coming into the season, I was higher on Buffalo than I was Miami, and even though they ravaged the Broncos, there's all sorts of adjectives you could use for that, but I think I'm just going to go with the Bills. I think they're a better team from the start. They had a nice bounce back week last week. I mean, 37 points is a lot of points. It's not 70, but that's a lot of points too. I think I'm just going to go with my gut. I think I'm just going to go with the Bills. I think the Dolphins kind of have we're not going to score this many points every time kind of thing. I don't think they get shut down. I think it ends up more of a shootout, but Buffalo at home too. It's a pretty tough place to play. So I'm gonna lean Buffalo here.
Okay, well,
this is the first time that the top 2 teams in DVOA rankings. It's something I follow pretty carefully because I feel like it gives a pretty accurate power rankings for teams. This early in the season, it's a little bit skewed by who you've played and stuff like that.
in a 7-point game, yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately, like the Dolphins have basically a DVOA, which is measured as compared to the average team in the NFL. They have a DVOA on offense of 62.3%. That means they have been 62.3% better than the average NFL team so far this year. That's a massive difference in offense. I mean, that is like, maybe half that you'd be an all-time. You'd be like the 2008 New England Patriots or something. So that's pretty amazing. But so the number 1 and number 2 teams are playing. And if I'm not mistaken, no, unfortunately, the Giants eked out being slightly worse than the Raiders. So we almost had the top 2 teams and the bottom 2 teams both playing each other this week, which would have been amazing. But after saying all that, the last matchup of the top 2 teams in DVOA was the famous Chiefs-Rams game, 54-51, which in 2018, which was basically whoever has the ball last. And I think that's what this game is really about. And if I think about that, I think maybe the Dolphins might be the team that I give the ball last to. And I think their coach is a little bit smarter about the analytics and doing things in the game to maximize possessions, and that might be just enough to win this game. Though Miami's defense is middling, their special teams is absolutely terrible, maybe the worst in the league, but their offense is that good. I'll take the Dolphins.
Can I get a word real quick, Jeremy?
This is unorthodox, but I'll allow it.
I like how I'm like, gut check. I'm just going the Bills. I like them more. The Will rolls in. Actually, they're DVOA, and the Dolphins are 67% better than anyone else. Yada 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 yada.
You're right. I just think the Dolphins are rolling right now, and as good as Buffalo's defense has been, this is going to be another example in the NFL of how it doesn't matter how good your defense is. If you play an offense that's that good and rolling, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to go with the Dolphins here. I mean, you're giving the Dolphins points here. I mean, I mean,
They don't need any more.
yeah, like I mean, this seems just like too good of a bet to take on. So I like the Dolphins to win and to cover here.
Nice weather too, set in the 70s and sunny.
Yeah, I mean that just bodes really well. I like what Josh Allen has done. The past 2 weeks he's played mistake-free football for the most part. Dolphins are definitely a better caliber. So, when the real bullets fly, let's face it, Buffalo's back on track after playing two pretty bad teams and the Commanders and the Raiders, honestly. So, I like the Dolphins here. There's really not a whole lot more to be said. So, we're going to go from the best matchup of the week to probably the most laughable game of the week. And not only that, it's featured on Monday Night Football.
Tougher game.
Right. So the Broncos head to Chicago. The Bears are a 3.5 point favorite. Who started out last time? I think Corey did. Yeah,
I did.
Will, I'll let you go first.
I'll make it quick. Russell Wilson, loves Monday night. He loves it so much that even when he was injured and not able to play, he pretended to play a game on the field in warmups before a Monday Night Football game. So I think even Russell Wilson pretending to play a game would be enough to beat the Chicago Bears this year. And I think the Bears, in addition to that, are just about on the verge, maybe even already started tanking. So I got a feeling that this game will go to Denver and it will be either totally entertaining because they're so closely matched, or we will be watching it like a train wreck.
Corey, what are you thinking?
I'll admit I stole this. I sent it to you guys earlier, but this is a stoppable force versus a movable object. I did not know it was on Monday Night Football. That's
yeah,
chef's kiss.
Something. But the Broncos, I don't think are this bad. They're a bad team, but the Bears are
that bad.
Yeah, they're that bad. This has been irking me for a while. I'm not sure how many people know how much I love Darnell Wright coming out. And they have completely neutered all of the fun stuff that he did in his pass sets to where he's just kind of chalk. He's doing what everyone else. There's so many things to complain about on that team. But that's one of my favorite offensive lineman prospects that I've ever watched. And to watch him just be so, standard, that was, a lot of the fun with him. That one really irked me. So, especially because of that, I'm going the Broncos. I want the Bears to clear that whole unit out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. Honestly, kind of what you said, Will. This team is on the brink of just quitting on their coach. They already had a defensive coordinator leave for, mysterious reasons. Apparently, there's something inappropriate going on, so they allowed him to leave with his dignity. Not really. We all always find that stuff out, but this team is just like this close from just saying, screw you, Matt Eberflus. We're done with you. You're not going to win here. Well, what they've done to Justin Fields is just downright laughable for a guy who was able to run over teams last year. They're making him stand in the pocket and try to do progressions that he still cannot do. He is still so slow from moving one to the other. He just doesn't have that type of field awareness. And, not to rag on Justin Fields, a lot of people are starting to question whether he's ever going to have that. So, I'm going to throw this out to you guys because I'm going with the Broncos here. I definitely feel like they got to be a better coach team. I mean, Sean Payton, for Christ's sake, against Matt Eberflus. What are we talking about? But I mean, who do you think's more at fault here, the quarterback or this organization?
I think it's
yes.
Almost a little similar.
Yes.
Sorry.
To a much worse degree, it's kind of similar to the Steelers, especially those first 2 weeks where what the quarterback was being told to do. I mean, I saw numerous clips of receivers running the same routes. 4 verticals from that was us. 4 verticals from
Oh, that was us.
But just so many things that just nonsensical calls, poor play designs, bad blocking. He's not getting any protection in the interior. But there's this whole stew of badness, and then the quarterback's not hitting throws either. Like there's just so many things wrong. It's one of those things where I don't even know if you can see if Justin Fields has got it unless he's in a different organization. Like you just need to remove him from that city, and then you can kind of see, maybe he can figure it out, maybe he can't. But it's 1A organization, 1B Justin Fields.
The stew of badness, dude. That's another chef's kiss moment. Listen, I think I have really started to come to the conclusion. And some of this, Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin have kind of burned this into my brain now. I don't think it matters who you are as a prospect coming in. If you go to a team that's messed up in their mind in terms of what they want to do on offense and trying to play this like sort of defensive passive offense or defensive football, whatever you want to, attrition football, whatever you want to call it, right away you're in trouble. If you're not on the cutting edge in terms of what you're trying to do on offense, you're behind. So I feel like that's a big issue. But I think the things that we were worried about with Justin Fields as a college player are kind of what his problems are now. It's just that they haven't really done anything to help him or make it better. And to top it off, they gave him Chase Claypool of all players, like a guy that's it's
the magic bullet.
Good. He looks good. He's like, you feel like he might be open. He's big. He'll go up for the ball. No. So I think you're just setting him up for even more failure by giving him receivers like that to throw to and trading a virtual first-round pick for it on top of it. This brings up another interesting point, which is Caleb Williams, has eligibility remaining, and he has threatened that if he doesn't like the team that has the number 1 overall pick, that he might go back to school. So here's a question I have for you guys. Do you think Caleb Williams, if the Bears finish with the number 1 pick, do you think he has a conversation with him between the end of the season and when he has to decide about committing to the draft and says, you either fire this guy and you hire an offensive guru that I approve of, or I'm going back to school? Like that would be a pretty good negotiating position, I think.
I mean, I'm not going to say that Justin Fields was on Caleb Williams' level, but Justin Fields was the most accurate passer in college football that senior year. Everyone remembers that deep ball against Clemson that, took the air completely out the sails. I mean, this Justin Fields, the A place, they were there with Caleb Williams' A place. Like there were the run on the throw on the run plays. I mean, it was right there. So if you're Caleb Williams, you're looking at that, why not? Why would you go there? Justin Fields isn't a bum. Like that's the thing. Justin Fields was a good quarterback prospect. That's universally agreed upon. He had his flaws, but Caleb Williams has not as many flaws, but it's some of the same things where he eats the ball a little, is prepared to scramble, where, if you weren't able to get this dude to do anything, where he looks like the worst QB in the league, then why should you go there if there's not organizational changes?
Yep.
Plus, who wants to play in Chicago?
I'll give you that, but
great fans, great city, but yeah.
But so here's my question, or let's entertain this scenario. So let's say he does come out, even if the Bears have the number 1 overall pick, why isn't he just pulling Eli Manning and saying, nope, trade me out? I mean, that's what happened, in that draft class back in 2004. Eli Manning gets drafted by the Chargers, and the Mannings were like, no, we're not going to play for you ever. And then sure enough, that they work something out. I mean, that's probably one of the most, obviously that's a rare circumstance. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you've ever seen that happen other than that. But why couldn't he just try to pull the same crap? I mean,
John Elway did it. John Elway did it.
Pre-NIL, if this was pre-NIL, I think it probably would happen. That would be if I had to bet. But Caleb Williams could go back to USC, have the number 1 offense in the nation, and make, not even kidding, if he went back for another year, he would probably make 10 times as much as he would as a rookie. It would be bigger than Johnny Manziel. Like he would be far and away the high. no one would touch him until another QB decides to go back for their 4th year when there's no need. Like, it would be he'd probably be like the highest, like 6th highest paid QB in the NFL with fucking his 1-year salary there.
Right. I mean, that's a really good point, Corey. I mean, we're talking, 5 years ago when NIL doesn't exist. Then you probably pull the Eli Manning. I'm not going to play for Chicago, but you're absolutely right. That's an aspect, you forget about if you're not paying super close attention. But I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's going to make a 7-figure salary next year.
Yes.
But the other thing is, whoever finishes with the first overall pick, it's not going to be a good team. Like, so I don't know how what your chances are really. I think it's just kind of like, who you would prefer to play for at some point, but it doesn't really make that much difference. I don't know.
Right. I mean, maybe you guys can tell me this better, but I mean, does USC graduate a lot of people? Because I would say he has a better shot of going back if a lot of the same team's going to be there and they think they can push for something in their first year.
Oh, like the rest of their team?
Yeah. They have a bigger turnover last year. This is the year that's, I think, is at least last year seemed to be the year where a lot of guys were gone. But
gotcha.
You could play a fun game called How Many of the Top 20 Receivers in the Nation Transfer to USC if Caleb Williams returns?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they're just reload.
Fair point. All these little aspects of college football that are different now that you always kind of forget about. But let's get back to our
and NIL today.
What'd you say?
We hit on the transfer portal and the NIL today.
Yeah, and we're not even a college football podcast.
Corey, how maybe are you willing to disclose how much NIL you're making this year?
I don't know if I can or not, but I think we have a little team fund where anyone can just donate to it.
Oh, okay. So,
same amount. I've got 17 that I haven't cashed out on yet. We've been going at this for about 7 months.
It's amazing, man. Good for you. That's why you're so well stocked with paper products at your house.
$17, not grand.
Yeah. Hey, couple burgers, had a couple of Happy Meals in there.
Right. Well, let's swing it back to our own division. The Ravens head to Cleveland this week to take on the Browns. The Browns are favored by 2.5. I'll go ahead and start out with this one. If the Ravens are as injured as they have been and are down that many guys again, I'm definitely gonna, take Cleveland and the points. Deshaun Watson, just had his best game as a Brown, just absolutely surgical for the most part against that Titans defense. I know this because my best friend is a Titans fan, and he kept texting me throughout the whole game. Oh my God, he's back to superstar mode. But anyway, Watson looked a lot better this week, even without Nick Chubb there, kind of shoulder load. Really, Jerome Ford looked good in limited capabilities, more in the pass game. Titans always have a tough run defense. But right now, it just seems like things are clicking in Cleveland. Amari Cooper's back on track. EJ Moore, I think, caught 10 balls last week. They're finding ways to move that ball on offense, even without Nick Chubb. And I think that's what I like the most about this team, not to mention their defense is playing incredible right now. So I like Cleveland and favored by the 2.5 here. Corey, swing it back out to you.
Cleveland's, we watched them play. Like, I feel like, I don't know what happened with the Titans game, but they seem a little, and it's early, they're only 2-1, but they seem a little fool's gold to me. Maybe Watson is still the same QB that he was 2 years ago, and that's just kind of came back out again. But, maybe this changes later in the year when these two teams play again, but I'm just going to go with the Ravens here. I think they're, even with the injuries, I think they're a little better overall. And I don't think that Browns defense is as good as it's been so far. And I think the Ravens are a team that could take advantage of that. I still don't think they're that good against the run. That's my kind of point of view.
Gotcha. Will?
You say that the Ravens are, injured, but I don't know if you haven't been paying attention, if you have a sense of how bad their injuries have been. But I mean, like, they're missing everybody right now. Like, they're in some serious problems. And
like the 4th year in a row.
Oh yeah, it's whatever they're. The sad part is that I actually know someone that was going to say whatever they're doing in their training department isn't working well. I have to be careful about saying that because I know people in that world. Yeah, it's like they're missing their two best pass rushers. their center, their top two running backs, left tackle. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right? So I think, like I said, even before last week, you remember me saying that I thought that the Ravens were maybe, right now, the fourth best team in the division. They last week they kind of came up with a, pretty good game at the end there, but they, like they didn't look terrible. So you could maybe think that they're going to bounce back a little, but I think that the end result of the injuries is just going to take them a little while to get rolling, if ever this season. So I happen to think that Cleveland, I don't know, man. It's like it's hard to judge based on who that defense has played, but their defense with Schwartz, I think, is really something, and they're just getting started. I think it's not a close game. I think the Cleveland Browns beat the Ravens in at least a 2-score game.
Gotcha. All right. Calling it big. I like it. One more game before our 5-star matchup, obviously. This should be a good one. We go to the NFC North. The Lions are headed to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers are a 1.5-point favorite here. Staged a nice little comeback the other day to win, even though it took a missed field goal to win. Corey, I'll start with you. Who do you think is going to win and why?
Let Will have this one first.
Will, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that what happened to the Packers at the end of the game last week is like a real sustainable strategy. So unless you think that they somehow found their mojo in the comeback win, maybe it makes them a little more confident starting out. But I think Detroit is a better team overall. Fewer flaws to their game. Don't love everything about them, but I do think that they figure out a way to go to Green Bay and get a win. I think, Green Bay used up a little bit of its magic last week. I'm not sure they have that every week.
All right, Corey.
Yeah, I think this is where I kind of fall back on the better team that I thought at the beginning of the season line of thinking. We're still early. There's not that many games to go off of. I mean, both these teams are 2-1. Jordan Love's looked like a gunslinger for these first 3 weeks. I mean, wouldn't it be something if the Packers did it again where they sit there, maybe that's something that needs to happen more. Maybe it's just a tried and true method where if you just sit these guys for 2 years, that actually really does something. But I just think, like Will said, I think Detroit's more rounded. Now, I think it'll be close. What was the line, Jeremy? 1.5?
Yeah, 1.5 for
I don't know.
Packers. Plus
1.5.
Might as well be a pick 'em, yeah.
I don't know if it was one. I don't know if it's a 1.5 close game, but I'll go Detroit. That's a tough one, but I think this will be a close game.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. We've seen some good things from both teams. I'm going to go with the Packers here just because they are our Thursday night football game of the week. The home team almost always wins on Thursday night. Don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the short week for the traveling team. That's just kind of where I'm thinking. And also, it sounds like Christian Watson and Aaron Jones could be back for this one.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I know. Talk about a guy you drafted, Christian Watson, hasn't been able to play him yet. But no. That's a big boost to that offense. That's just another deep threat for them. Aaron Jones is do-it-all type of back that can really make a lot of plays in the passing game. I mean, shoot, you saw it week 1 against the Bears. He lit them up.
You know what? If Aaron Jones plays this game, I'm switching my pick. That's how much difference he makes.
Nice. But so for those reasons, if those two play, and just because Packers are the home team, I like Green Bay to pull out a close one, no doubt. It should be a really fun game this week to watch. But that brings us to our 5-star matchup. Steelers travel to Houston. Texans are getting +3 at home. So believe it or not, your Steelers are favored again this week. I'll start off with this one. I honestly, I think the Steelers come out. That they don't win convincingly, but it's kind of like a game this past week against the Raiders. It's one of those games where I think we have the chance to put it on early, But then we let him back in the game because that's what we do. Tank Dell lights up Levi Walsh, for like 159 and a touchdown or two this week. Just kind of feels like it's gonna be one of those games where it's like, yeah, we had our opportunities to put away the game. We didn't. Shocker. So I like Pittsburgh here. Let's go with the score. Boy, 27 sounds like a lot. So I'm gonna stick with my good old 23 because I actually hit on that last week. And then I'll go 17 for Houston. So 23-17 Pittsburgh. Will, what do you think?
I think it's it's a little bit hard to judge this team because I'm talking about either team, but it's hard to judge Houston, I think, because young quarterback tend to be a little bit up and down. So you don't know if like the guy you saw last week is going to be the guy you see this week. But I think playing the Steelers is easier than playing the Jaguars. How many points did Houston have last week?
They put up 37.
Yeah, so it's like I'm not sure we'll get that kind of explosion from them. And I very hard for me to pick against the Steelers in this matchup because I just feel like they're playing their trouble is really when they play a good defense, right? So far it looks like. So I don't think that the Texas defense is particularly good. I think it might come down to a special teams play. The Texans have been really good on special teams. They've been basically adding points every week with special teams, including a block field goal last week. It's a little scary. So I'm going to say the Steelers eke out a win, but I have a feeling it's going to be a real nail biter. I'll call it 2017 Steelers.
2017. All right, Corey.
I don't love the matchup of this game, and it's not for a reason you guys mentioned. I think the gap in coaching between DeMeco Ryans and Matt Canada is so severe that we are just going to have a miserable time trying to move the ball. Like the Texans don't have, all the guys in on defense that I'm sure DeMeco would want to have in. But I think he has enough to where, we talk about how we know what the Steelers are running half the time. What do you think, probably what people have said for a while, and I mean, he's a head coach now, so he falls out the category, but the best defensive coordinator in the league. What do you think he sees when he looks at the Steelers offense? So I think we really struggle to move the ball. I think even though they don't have the guys that I'm sure they'd want to have, I think – because, I mean, they played the Ravens, which Lamar's pretty electric. I mean, he was running on them, I believe, that game. Yep. He played Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, which Richardson carved him up for 2. So that's just kind of one of those things where those guys, we talked about their linebackers not being fast. That's the part where good running quarterback will kill you if you don't have linebackers who can run. And then 17 points is a quiet game for the Jags. I mean, I get their offense hasn't been clicking, but I mean, everyone thought that the Jags were going to come out that game and, score in bunches. It's just tough for me to see the Steelers scoring over 14. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of the situation. And I mean, do we think our defense holds them under 20? I mean, Dameon Pierce is due to crack one. I think he scored 1 touchdown so far. I don't think he's broke one. I mean, it feels like a trap game, and I don't think we're that good, but it feels like a trap game for what we think we are. Mm-hmm. We're always due to lose a game like this. I think the biggest thing for me is just DeMeco Ryans, best defensive coordinator in the NFL. And I'm not sure how many people, probably not many of you, but QB School, JT O'Sullivan, former NFL QB, he does these video breakdowns. As bad as the Bears offense is, people have asked him, who's the worst offensive coordinator? Whoever's running stuff with the Bears or Canada? And he says Canada. That's astonishing. I mean, that's a guy who knows what he's looking at. So, we're looking at the worst offensive coordinator in the league versus the best defensive coordinator in the league, or at least one of the best 2. I just don't see a world where we manage to put up over 14, and I don't think that's enough. So if I'm going to call the score, I'm going to say 24-14. And I think it's one of those ones where we have a similar podcast as the one we had last week, or 2 weeks ago, but it's actually a loss this time.
All right.
Yeah. By the way, you got to have a defensive score to or a couple of short fields to make the difference.
Yeah.
Because your offense is probably not going to light them up.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Corey being the rebel here, picking an upset win. Well, I don't know if it's really much of an upset. Both these teams are pretty on the same level, but Corey going with the home team, the Houston Texans. So we'll see how things shake out. Thank you, gentlemen, for another week here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. Thank you, fans, for joining us on this quest for another Lombardi. Another question mark at the end of
Hey,
that.
eventually I may live long enough,
Yeah, well, 7 isn't going for 7 anymore, so I don't know what we call that type of conquest, but we know it's
maybe 8's going for 8.
oh
Come on, guys.
Oh boy, we've got a long way to go just to get to 7. But with that being said, thank you very much for joining us again. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the Message Boards, joined by the best colleagues money can't buy in this circumstance. Will Massack, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben Corey 39. Thank you again, gentlemen. Here we go, Steelers.
Thank you, Jeremy. Go get them, Steelers.